I want to start today by putting you in a very specific and I think a very common headspace.
Okay.
It's 8 a.m. You've just walked into your kitchen. You open the pantry and you're staring at, say, 3 different boxes of cereal.
Or you're at the coffee shop looking up at that big chalkboard menu.
Exactly.
Huh?
And you make a choice.
Mm.
You grab the granola with the ancient grains, you order the oat milk latte, and if I stopped you right there, right in that moment, and asked, why did you do that? You would have a very specific, very confident answer.
Oh, for sure. You'd say, well, I like the nutty taste of this granola. Or maybe I'm trying to cut down on dairy
Yeah.
for my digestion.
Right. It's just what I felt like. It
Yeah.
feels so visceral. It feels completely internal. We walk through our lives with this really unshakable assumption that we are the captains of our own ships.
That we're in control.
We are.
Yeah.
We believe that our preferences, our likes, our dislikes, all our big and small decisions are generated deep inside the fortress of our own minds.
And that really is the fundamental illusion of modern life, the idea of the autonomous self. But today, we're going to dig into a stack of research, mostly anchored by Jonah Berger's book, Invisible Influence, that basically takes a sledgehammer to that whole idea.
It's a bit of a Matrix moment, isn't it? Taking the red pill on free will.
It really is. Berger introduces a statistic right out of the gate that, it just makes you want to throw the book across the room in defense. He suggests that 99.9% of all decisions are shaped by others.
Wow. 99.9.
Yep.
That leaves, what, a sliver of a percentage point for me, for my own actual choice.
That's the argument. The whole premise is that social influence is like gravity or like the air pressure in this room. You don't see it, you don't feel it pressing against your skin.
So it's there.
It's there, and it is dictating every move you make, from the name you choose for your firstborn child to whether you decide to save for retirement or even something as tiny as which way you face when you park your car.
So, okay, our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the science of social influence. We want to understand how we are swayed by others, often completely without realizing it.
Right. We're going to look at the biology of it, and we've got some incredible studies with monkeys and mirror neurons to talk about, and then the sociology of it.
But I want to start with that without realizing it part, because that's the real kicker, isn't it?
It is. It's the whole game.
If you told me I bought my car because my neighbor bought a similar one, I'd tell you you're crazy. I'd pull out my spreadsheet, I'd show you my research on gas mileage, on resale value.
And that very defensive reaction brings us right to the first major concept we have to get our heads around. The blind spot. There is this specific phenomenon where we are perfectly capable of seeing influence working on other people, but we are structurally, almost physically, blind to it in ourselves.
I think Berger has a great story about this. It involves a bike ride through Palo Alto, right?
He does. And if you know Palo Alto, California, you know the vibe.
Yeah.
It's Silicon Valley. It's a lot of tech money, startups. It is a very, very status-conscious environment.
So Berger spends his day biking around town, literally hunting for BMWs.
Right, which in Palo Alto is probably not very hard.
No, it's like shooting fish in a barrel.
It's a target-rich environment, for sure. So every time he finds a BMW parked on the street, he slips a survey under the windshield wiper. Now, this wasn't just some marketing thing. It was a scientific questionnaire, and it was designed to test this exact blind spot.
Okay, so what did he ask?
He asked the owners 2 sets of questions. First, why did you buy this car?
And I'm guessing they didn't write down because I wanted to look rich.
Never. Not a single person. They listed things like German engineering, the handling, acceleration, reliability, very left brain, logical, practical reasons.
Sure.
But then came the second question. Think of a friend who also bought a BMW. Why did they buy it?
And that's where the script flips.
Immediately. All of a sudden, the answers became, oh, well, they really care about status, or they wanted to look cool, or everyone in their social circle drives one, so...
They're a bit of a show-off.
Exactly.
That is fascinating. So when I buy a BMW, it's because I'm this savvy consumer who appreciates a fine piece of machinery. But when you buy a BMW, it's because you're a sheep following the herd.
That is the illusion in a nutshell. We see the social pressure on everyone else, but we genuinely believe we are immune. It's like a stealth gas. You're breathing it in constantly, but it's odorless and colorless to you. You only see the effects on the people standing next to you.
That's honestly a little unsettling. It implies we don't know our own minds nearly as well as we think we do.
I think that's fair to say.
And if we can't even be honest with ourselves about why we bought a sedan, what about the big stuff? Let's talk about something even more personal than cars. Let's talk about love.
Ah, yes. The myth of the one, the soulmate.
Right. We all grow up with this incredibly romanticized idea.
Mm.
I mean, Plato wrote about it, this poetic notion that humans were originally these four-armed, four-legged creatures that got split in half by the gods.
And now we're all wandering the earth looking for our other half.
Exactly. Our soulmate.
It's a beautiful story. It sells a lot of movie tickets, a lot of romance novels.
It does. But let's look at the reality of it through this lens of influence. Berger describes a scenario that I call the grocery bagger scenario.
Okay, let's unpack that.
So, imagine a high school junior. We can call him Sam. His parents tell him, get a job, learn some responsibility. So he starts bagging groceries at the local supermarket. Not a glamorous gig. He's stuck in lane 6.
Okay.
But he meets a coworker in the break room. She's bagging groceries over in lane 7. And they start talking.
They bond over the manager being a jerk or, how hard it is to memorize all the produce codes.
Right. That's the stuff. And eventually, they start dating. Years go by. They stay together. They get married. And at their wedding, during the speeches, they stand up and tell everyone, we just knew from the moment we met, it was destiny.
It feels like destiny. It really does. But if you zoom out and you look at the statistics, it starts to look a lot less like magic and, a lot more like math.
How so?
Just think about the numbers. There are over 300 million people in the United States alone. Even if you filter for age, gender, language, whatever, you still have millions of potential partners.
Yet, something like a third of Americans meet their spouse either at work or at school.
Exactly. So what are the sheer statistical odds that out of millions of potential soulmates scattered across the globe, your one true love, the single person most compatible with your soul, just happened to be hired at the same grocery store at the exact same time in the lane right next to you?
The odds are astronomical. It suggests that we aren't really falling in love with a specific person so much as we are falling in love with proximity.
And this brings us to a huge psychological concept called the mere exposure effect. It's a fundamental rule of how our brains work, and it's simple. Familiarity breeds liking, not contempt. We mistake the feeling of seeing something often for the feeling of, this is good.
There was a really clever study done on this at the University of Pittsburgh. It involved a college classroom, right?
Yes, this is a classic from a researcher named Richard Moreland. He used a big lecture hall intro to psych, 200 students, a huge room. He hired 4 women to pose as students.
Okay.
Now, here's the key variable. These women didn't speak to anyone. They didn't participate in class. They didn't flirt. They didn't make friends. They just walked in, sat down in the front row, took some notes, and left. They were essentially human furniture.
So nobody in the class had a positive interaction with them. They were just part of the scenery.
Exactly. The only difference between these 4 women was how often they showed up to class. Woman A came to 0 classes. Woman B came to 5. Woman C to 10. And woman D came to 15 classes.
And at the end of the semester,
he showed photos of these women to all the students in the class and asked them to rate the women on attractiveness and likability.
and keep in mind, none of the students had ever talked to these women. Most of them probably didn't even consciously remember seeing them there.
And yet, the results were a perfect staircase, a straight lineup. The woman who attended 0 classes was rated the least attractive. The one who came to 5 was rated higher, 10, even higher. And the woman who attended 15 classes was rated as significantly more attractive and more likable than all the others.
Just because she was there more often.
Just because she was there, our brains are efficient. Or you could say they're lazy. Processing a new face takes energy. Processing a familiar face is easy. And the brain interprets that ease of processing as a positive feeling. It basically says easy equals good.
So the grocery bagger falls in love with the girl in lane 7, not necessarily because their souls are cosmically intertwined.
But because he saw her in the break room 200 times and his brain went, I know this pattern. I like this pattern is safe.
It takes a little bit of the romance out of it, doesn't it?
Ugh.
But it definitely explains why we tend to date our neighbors, our coworkers, and our classmates. We like what we know.
We do.
This whole idea that our brains are being, programmed without our permission leads us to another really strange experiment Berger mentions. It's about subconscious priming. I actually want to try this on you, the listener, right now.
Oh, this is a good one. It's a great demonstration of just how malleable our judgment really is.
Okay, so if you're listening, I want you to clear your mind for a second. I'll read you a short list of words. Don't try to analyze them. Just let them wash over you. Ready?
List 1.
List 1. Reckless, conceited, aloof, fat, stubborn. Got those. Okay. Now, I want you to imagine a guy named Donald. Here's Donald's bio. Donald loves climbing mountains. He drives in demolition derbies. He pilots jet boats, even though he doesn't know much about them. He rarely changes his mind once he decides to do something.
Now, just take a second. How do you feel about Donald? If you just heard that first list of words, reckless, conceited Donald probably sounds like a bit of a jerk.
A menace?
Right, a hazard to himself and others. Someone you definitely would not want to lend your car to.
For sure. But what if I give you a totally different list of words first? Let's just rewind. Forget you ever heard list 1. Here's list 2. Adventurous, self-confident, independent, persistent.
Same bio for Donald.
Same exact bio. Now look at Donald again. He climbs mountains. He's a demolition derby driver. He pilots jet boats.
Suddenly, Donald isn't a reckless idiot. He's an exciting, adventurous hero. He's the guy you want to have a beer with and hear his stories.
But the facts about Donald didn't change one bit. His biography was identical in both scenarios.
The only thing that changed was the filter we handed you 5 seconds before. The words reckless and stubborn primed your brain to look for negatives. The words adventurous and persistent primed you to look for positives.
And the really scary part is we don't realize it's happening. We think we're making this objective judgment of Donald based on his actions, but we're actually judging him based on a context that someone else just created for us.
That is the invisible part of invisible influence. Our perception of reality is not objective. It is constantly being painted and repainted by what and who is around us.
So we've established that we like what we see often, and our judgment is easily primed by these invisible forces. But let's go even deeper into this idea of conforming, because nobody wants to be a conformist.
No, it's a dirty word.
We all want to be the rugged individualist. But the research suggests that biologically, we are herd animals through and through.
We absolutely are. And to really understand the mechanics of the herd, we have to look at this sort of battle between two titans of social psychology, Sharif and Ash.
Okay, let's start with Sharif. He was the one who put people in a dark room, right?
Yes, the famous darkroom study. He used a visual trick called the autokinetic effect. Basically, if you project a tiny stationary dot of light in a pitch black room, your eyes get tired and they lose their frame of reference.
So the light looks like it's moving, even though it's perfectly still.
Exactly. So he puts people in there all by themselves and asks, how far did the light move? And because it's an illusion, the answers are all over the place. One person says 2 inches, the next says 6 inches. It's total chaos. They're completely uncertain.
But then Sharif puts them in groups.
And now they have to say their answers out loud in front of other people. And what happens is a convergence. The person who thought it moved 6 inches hears someone else say 2 inches. The next time, they lower their guess. The 2 inches person raises theirs.
They meet in the middle.
Very quickly, the group converges on a single answer. Let's say it's 4 inches. They create a social norm, a group truth.
And the really wild part of that study is that this group truth stuck with them, didn't it?
It did. Even when Sharif separated them later and put them back in the dark room all by themselves, they stuck to the group's number. They had internalized the group's opinion as the objective truth.
So Sharif proved that when we are unsure, we look to others for the answer. But then another researcher, Solomon Asch, looked at this and said, well, of course they agreed.
Right. Asch's argument was, the answer was ambiguous, they were confused and in the dark, literally.
He thought people only conformed when they were lost.
Exactly. So he wanted to test what happens when the answer is staring you right in the face, when it's obvious. So he designed the line length study.
This is one of the most famous and, frankly, most chilling experiments in all of psychology. Can you describe the setup for us?
It's incredibly simple. You have a target line on the left side of a card and then 3 comparison lines, A, B, and C on the right. One of them is clearly, obviously, the same length as the target. The other 2 are wildly different.
A child could do it. There's no ambiguity whatsoever.
None. But Asch sets up a room where everyone at the table is an actor except for one poor, unsuspecting participant.
The subject of the experiment.
Right. So they sit around a table. The experimenter holds up the cards. The actors, one by one, are all instructed to confidently choose the wrong line. So they'll all say, it's line B, definitely BB.
And the real participant is just sitting there rubbing their eyes thinking, am I going crazy? It's so obviously line C.
You can see the stress in the old footage of these experiments. The person sweats, they look around nervously, they can't believe what they're hearing.
And yet, when it gets to their turn,
75% of the participants conform to the wrong answer at least once.
75%.
They denied the evidence of their own eyes just to fit in with the tribe.
That is the power of social pressure. Our need to belong can literally override our need for truth.
It can. And this isn't just some weird human neurosis. This instinct goes deep into our evolutionary biology, which means we have to talk about the vervet monkeys.
Oh, the pink and blue corn. This study just blew my mind. It shows how sticky culture is, even for monkeys.
It is an incredible study. So researchers take these groups of wild vervet monkeys, they get a bunch of pink corn and blue corn, they soak one of the colors in a bitter, really nasty tasting liquid. So let's say they make the pink corn taste terrible.
So the monkeys learned very quickly. Blue corn is good, pink corn is gross.
Exactly. A local culture is formed. We are a blue corn tribe. But then the researchers play the long game. They wait for a new generation of baby monkeys to be born.
Okay.
And this time, they put out both pink and blue corn, but here's the twist. Neither of them is bitter anymore. They both taste perfectly fine.
But the baby monkeys have only ever seen their mothers and the other adults eat the blue corn.
That's the key. The babies completely ignored the pink corn. Some of them actually sat on the piles of pink corn to eat the blue corn. They didn't even recognize the pink stuff as food because the culture they were born into said it wasn't. They were following a rule that no longer had a reason to exist.
And wasn't there a twist with immigrant monkeys, too?
Yes. So in vervet monkey society, males often switch tribes when they grow up. So you'd have a male who was raised in a pink corn tribe who moves to a blue corn tribe. He arrives, sees everyone eating blue, and what do you think he does?
He immediately starts eating blue corn.
Instantly. He drops his old habit without a second thought to match the new local norm.
Monkey. See, monkey do, literally. It's funny because you see this in humans all the time with regional dialects. You know, I grew up saying soda. If I move to the South, suddenly everyone around me is saying Coke for every kind of carbonated beverage.
Or pop in the Midwest.
Right. And after a while, you just start saying it too. It just greases the social wheels. It's easier.
It saves friction. If you say soda and everyone gives you a funny look, you learn to adapt. But this following the herd mechanism has huge, huge implications for what becomes popular in our culture. It really helps explain why some songs become massive hits and others just fade away.
This brings us to the Music Lab experiment.
Hmm.
Because we all have this assumption that if a song is #1 on the charts, it must be the best song. You know, that Britney Spears is famous because she is objectively more talented than everyone else.
That's the core assumption, right? Quality leads to success. But a researcher named Matthew Salganik wanted to test if that was actually true, or if success was more about luck and social influence.
So he created this music download site with a bunch of unknown bands. Bands with names like Asian Spider Monkey or 52 Metro.
No famous names, no pre-existing hype, just the music.
And he split the users into different worlds, right?
Right. In the control world, you just listened to songs and downloaded what you liked. You couldn't see what anyone else was doing. This gave him a baseline for what was quote-unquote good. The best songs naturally rose to the top.
But then he created these other social influence worlds.
Exactly. In these worlds, you could see how many times a song had been downloaded by other people, and he created 8 of these parallel universes, all running at the same time.
So if quality is what really drives success, the same song should win in all 8 universes. The best song should always rise to the top, regardless of the download counts.
That's what you would expect. But that is absolutely not what happened. In one universe, a song by that band 52 Metro was the #1 smash hit. Everyone loved it. In another universe, that exact same song was a total flop. It ranked 40th out of 48.
That is just wild. The song didn't change at all.
Nothing changed but the social information. The only difference was what the first few users in each world happened to click on.
Salganik calls it cumulative advantage, right?
He does. He uses this great analogy of a parking lot at a county fair, one of those big Ferris wheel lots where there are no painted lines. The first car pulls in and just randomly parks facing west. The next car arrives, sees the first one, and thinks, I guess we're parking facing west, and does the same.
And soon the whole lot is facing west. But if that first driver had parked facing south?
The whole lot would be facing south. Success is path dependent. It's not just about quality. It's about who got there first and who followed them.
So Britney Spears certainly has talent. But in a parallel universe, she might just be a backup dancer for someone we've never even heard of.
It's entirely possible. The success we see isn't inevitable. It's largely about social momentum. It's a terrifying thought, really, that the classics we love, the Mona Lisa, Harry Potter, the Beatles, might just be the winners of a random social lottery.
Okay, so we've talked about how we mentally conform. But it turns out we also physically conform. Like, it's baked into our biology. We have to talk about the chameleon effect and this this Parma ice cream incident.
This is one of those fantastic happy accidents in science. So the story goes, we're in a lab in Parma, Italy. Researchers are studying macaque monkeys. They've got a monkey hooked up to brain monitors, and they're specifically watching the premotor cortex. That's the part of the brain that plans movement.
So when the monkey reaches out to pick up a peanut, the brain monitor goes bleep, bleep.
Exactly. So one day, the researchers are on a lunch break. A grad student comes back into the lab, and he's eating an ice cream cone. The monkey is just sitting there completely motionless, just watching him. The student raises the cone to his lips.
And the monitor goes off.
The monitor goes bleep, bleep. But the monkey didn't move a muscle. Its brain fired the exact same cells as if it were the one eating the ice cream itself. And this was the discovery of what we now call mirror neurons. When we observe someone performing an action, our brain simulates doing that exact same action.
Is this why I physically wince when I see an athlete get tackled hard in a football game?
That's exactly it. You are literally feeling a shadow of their experience. But this biology translates directly into our behavior. We are constantly, subtly, unconsciously mimicking the people around us. If you cross your legs in a conversation, I'm much more likely to cross mine. If you smile, I smile back.
We're constantly syncing up.
We are, and this isn't just a quirky thing. It's actually a powerful social tool. Berger talks about how this can be used almost weaponized in negotiations.
Weaponized mimicry. I like that.
Weaponized might be a strong word, but strategic definitely fits. There was a study involving a really tough negotiation over a gas station sale. The price gap was huge. The seller wanted way more than the buyer, this company Texoil, could pay. It seemed like a total deadlock.
This is usually where the deal just falls apart.
Right. But the researchers instructed one group of the buyers to subtly mimic the seller's body language. So if the seller rubbed his chin, a few seconds later, the buyer would rub his chin. If the seller leaned back in his chair, the buyer would lean back.
Just subtle copycatting, not obvious.
Very subtle. But the result, the negotiators who were told to mimic were 5 times more likely to close the deal.
5 times, just for leaning back in a chair at the right moment.
It's because mimicry creates what Berger calls social glue. It sends this incredibly powerful nonverbal signal that says, I am like you. And if you feel that I'm like you, you feel safe, you feel I'm trustworthy. It breaks down that us versus them barrier and fosters a sense of connection without a single word about it being spoken.
And there's a really easy way to apply this in daily life, too. The waiter tip study.
Oh, this is the easiest life hack in the book. If you're a waiter or really anyone in a service role, when someone gives you their order, don't just say, okay, or coming right up.
What should you do?
Repeat their order back to them, word for word.
Okay, so that's the burger with cheddar, medium rare, and a side salad instead of fries.
Just doing that simple act of verbal mimicry was found to increase tips by 70%.
70%? That's huge.
Because people love to be mirrored. It makes them feel heard and understood. It validates them.
Okay, so we mimic to fit in. We copy people to build trust. But here is the massive contradiction we have to tackle now. If we're all just monkeys copying each other, why do we have hipsters? Why do we have people who refuse to listen to a band the second they get popular? We have to talk about the drive for difference.
This is the central tension of human nature, isn't it? We have this deep, primal need to belong, but we also have this competing need to be unique. Berger calls this the snob effect.
We're back to the Asian spider monkey band paradox again.
We are. Why do fans get so angry when their favorite little indie band hits it big? The music hasn't gotten worse. In fact, with a better production budget, it might have actually gotten technically better. But the original fan hates it.
And they say the inevitable line, I like their old stuff.
The universal cry of the hipster. And the reason is that the band no longer functions as a signal of uniqueness. If I listen to a band that nobody knows, that tells the world I have unique, discerning taste, I'm a discoverer. I'm ahead of the curve.
But once everyone is listening to them, listening just tells the world that I own a radio.
Exactly. The signal has changed. So we abandon things, not because the quality drops, but because what it says about us changes.
Berger has that great Yogi Berra quote.
Nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded. It perfectly captures that dynamic. We will actually sacrifice our own enjoyment just to maintain that sense of distinction.
And there was a beer ordering study that proved this perfectly, and I have definitely been guilty of this myself.
I think we all have. So the setup is a microbrewery. They're offering 4 different sample beers. In one condition, people in a group have to order out loud, one after the other.
Oh, okay.
In the other condition, they just write their orders down privately on a piece of paper.
So in that out loud group, you hear what the person right before you ordered.
You do. And let's say the guy before you orders the IPA, and you also wanted the IPA. You feel this subtle internal pressure not to order it. You don't want to be a copycat. You want to have your own identity. So you order the stout instead,
Even if you hate stouts.
even if you don't really want a stout. And the result, people in the out loud group were significantly less satisfied with the beer they drank. They intentionally picked a beer they didn't really want just to be different from the person who ordered right before them.
They sacrifice their own enjoyment for the sake of distinction.
That's it.
That is kind of tragic when you think about it. Drinking a bad beer just to prove you're an individual. But this drive for difference, it starts really, really young. We have to talk about the sibling effect.
This is such fascinating data. It turns out that birth order plays a massive role in shaping who we become, and it's largely because of this drive to differentiate ourselves.
Berger brings up Morgan Bryan, the U.S. soccer star, as an example.
He does. And it turns out she fits a massive pattern. In elite sports, especially things like soccer and baseball, successful athletes are overwhelmingly likely to have older siblings.
Why would that be? Is it just that the older sibling beats up on them in the backyard and makes them tougher?
That's certainly part of it. The younger sibling is always playing up, trying to keep up with someone who is bigger and faster and stronger. That builds resilience. But there's a deeper psychological thing going on called niche partitioning.
Niche partitioning. Okay, unpack that for us.
Imagine a family as a small ecosystem with limited resources, the main resource being parental attention and approval. If the firstborn child takes on the role of the responsible, academic, conscientious one, which they very often do, that niche is now filled.
The good kid spot is taken.
It's taken. So the second child, craving their own identity and their own slice of that parental attention, instinctively pivots. They can't compete directly on responsibility, so they find an open lane. They go for rebel or athlete or comedian.
It's like a market. The future CEO market was saturated by your big brother, so you cornered the market on risk-taking adventurer.
That's a perfect way to put it, and the data bears this out. Firstborns are statistically more likely to become CEOs and to be more politically conservative. Laterborns are statistically more likely to be rebels, risk-takers, and elite athletes. It's not genetic, it's a reaction to the social environment of the living room.
It's amazing to think that a huge part of my personality might just be a reaction to whatever my big sister decided to be when she was 6 years old.
It creates a lifelong trajectory, and this deep desire to signal who we are brings us to the modern world of technology. We absolutely have to talk about the failure of Google Glass.
Oh, Google Glass. The headset that was supposed to change the world but just made you look like a cyborg.
Technologically, it was brilliant. I mean, it was ahead of its time. But socially, it was a complete disaster. And the reason why comes down to who wore it.
The early adopters.
Huh.
The tech evangelists.
Exactly, the tech bros. The people who wore Google Glass weren't just using a tool, they were making a statement. They were signaling that they were rugged individualists or future thinkers. But regular people on the street looked at them and saw something else entirely.
They saw glass holes.
They did. The product became inextricably linked to a specific, and for many people, a somewhat off-putting and isolating identity. It signaled too much difference, it didn't look cool, it looked weird. And once a product gets that weird social tag, it's basically dead in the water for the mass market.
It's that delicate balance again. You want to be different, but not that different. You want to be unique, but you don't want to be an outcast.
And this obsession with using choice as a form of identity is a very, very specifically American trait. Berger actually traces it all the way back to the Puritans.
The Puritans, the ones with the buckles on their hats.
The very same. Think about their core belief. They rejected the strict hierarchy of the Church of England. They didn't want a priest or a bishop acting as an intermediary telling them how to talk to God.
They wanted a direct line, a direct individual relationship with the divine.
I'll do it myself. And that seed of spiritual independence over centuries morphed into a kind of cultural independence. In America, choice isn't just about utility. Choosing a coffee order isn't just about getting caffeine. It's an identity marker. I am a soy latte extra foam person. I am a black coffee no-nonsense person.
We define our very souls by these little consumer choices.
We do, which brings us full circle. We think these choices are a pure expression of us, but as we've spent this whole deep dive seeing, they are heavily, heavily influenced by these two competing needs. the need to belong and the need to not belong.
And creates a constant tension.
It does. We are pulled by these two opposing forces, imitation and differentiation. We copy when we're uncertain, like the people in the dark room with the light. We copy when we want to build rapport, like the negotiator. But we differentiate when we feel our identity is threatened, like the person ordering the beer.
So, knowing all of this, knowing that we are, 99.9% shaped by the people around us, what do we do?
Yeah.
How do we use this knowledge?
Well, practically speaking, there are ways to break the cycle of bad influence. If you're in a meeting at work, for example, and you want to get honest opinions, do not let people vote by raising their hands.
Because the first person to raise their hand sets the trend for everyone else.
Immediately. The best practice is to use a secret ballot. Have people write down their genuine opinions on a piece of paper before anyone speaks. It breaks that chain of social influence, and it lets you see what people actually think, not what they think they're supposed to think.
And what about if you're that person in the Asch experiment? You're the lone voice of reason in a room full of people who are confidently and completely wrong.
This is actually the most hopeful part of all this research.
Yeah.
Asch ran another version of the experiment where he found that if just one other person in the group gave a different answer, even if it was still a wrong answer, just a different wrong answer, it was enough to free the subject to speak the truth.
So you don't need a majority to break the spell of groupthink. You just need a partner.
You just need to not be completely alone. Dissent, even from one person, creates the space for truth to emerge.
That is a really powerful thought.
It is. We are social animals. We can't escape influence. It's impossible. But by seeing the invisible strings, by understanding how they work, we can maybe choose which ones we want to dance to.
I love that. So here is a final provocative thought for you to chew on as you go about your day. The next time you reach for that specific brand of coffee on the shelf, or you feel that little spark of annoyance because your coworker bought the same shirt as you, just stop and ask yourself, is this really me choosing? Or is it just the invisible influence of the person standing next to me?
It's a question worth asking.